You think you remember the cast of New Jack City? Cool, stylish, unforgettable. But 34 years later, everything is different. Time, illness, and broken marriages have left them almost unrecognizable, and some have tragically passed away without the world even noticing. Stay with us as we uncover their shocking transformations and pay tribute to the legacies they left behind. Ice-T as Scotty Appleton. Some roles feel like destiny, and Scotty Appleton was one of them. In New Jack City, Ice-T didn't play the typical clean-cut cop. He brought a raw, lived-in edge to the badge. You could see the streets in his eyes, the anger in his voice. He wasn't just chasing Nino Brown. He was exorcising demons that felt real. But the truth was, Ice-T's career almost collapsed as fast as it rose. Just a year later, his track, Cop Killer, ignited a national storm. Politicians, police unions, even the president condemned him. His record deal was gone. Radio banned his music, and Hollywood nearly shut its doors. For a while, it looked like New Jack City would be his first and last big role. Yet he refused to fold. Films like Ricochet showed he could hold his own on screen, and then came the chance of a lifetime. Law and Order, SVU. As Detective Finn Tutuola, Ice-T flipped the script. Once branded as an enemy of police, he became one of TV's most recognizable cops. What started as controversy turned into a career that outlasted nearly all his critics. Even so, peace never came easy. Tabloid rumors about his marriage to Coco Austin, rocky relationships with his children, and constant whispers of arrogance on set kept him under fire. He thrived in the spotlight, but the battles never really stopped. Ice-T played Scotty Appleton in New Jack City, 1991, at 33 years old. Today, he is 67 years old, with an estimated net worth of $65 million, thanks to music royalties, his long-running SVU role, and real estate investments. Bill Cobbs as Old Man. In the middle of New Jack City's chaos, dealers, cops, and gunfire, there was one character who stood apart: the Old Man. Played by Bill Cobbs, he wasn't chasing money or power. He was the weary witness to a neighborhood destroyed by crack. His few scenes carried a quiet weight, as if he were speaking for an entire generation left behind. It wasn't the role that won him awards, but it showed exactly why Cobbs became Hollywood's go-to actor for dignity and depth in the middle of madness. But behind that dignity was a career filled with struggle. Hollywood rarely gave him space to shine. Even after memorable turns in The Hudsucker Proxy and The Bodyguard, casting directors pushed him into the background. Always the wise elder, never the star. For Cobbs, every audition meant fighting the same uphill battle, convincing the industry he could do more than deliver a single line of wisdom. The pain cut deeper when he was blacklisted for refusing a role that demeaned black actors. For years, his phone barely rang, and when it did, the offers were small television appearances. Even roles in bigger films like Night at the Museum still kept him in the margins, reinforcing the industry's unwillingness to see him beyond a type. Yet Cobbs never gave up. He turned every rejection into resilience, building a filmography of more than 200 credits. Audiences may not have always remembered his name, but they remembered his face, his presence, and his quiet strength. That became his true legacy. Bill Cobbs played the Old Man in New Jack City, 1991, at 57 years old. He passed away in 2024 at the age of 90, with an estimated net worth of $5 million. Michael Michelle as Selena. Selena in New Jack City wasn't just another girlfriend role. Michael Michelle gave her a sophistication that contrasted sharply with the violent men around her. She was beautiful, stylish, and represented the glamour attached to Nino Brown's empire. For Michelle, the part was supposed to be the beginning of a Hollywood rise. Instead, her career was marked more by roadblocks than red carpets. Her first major controversy nearly ended everything before it began. Cast in Eddie Murphy's Harlem Nights, 1989, Michelle was suddenly dropped and later filed a lawsuit, claiming she had been fired for rejecting Murphy's advances. The scandal made headlines but ended quietly with an out-of-court settlement. Still, the damage lingered. Hollywood is not forgiving to actresses who challenge its power structure, and Michelle found herself typecast into supporting roles that never matched her talent. She fought back, landing opportunities in television, appearing in ER and later Dynasty. Yet the projects never lasted long. Shows were canceled, storylines rewritten, and Michelle often found herself written out. On paper, she was a rising star, but behind the scenes, she was battling an industry that didn't quite know what to do with her. Her struggles weren't only professional. Michelle was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, a condition that caused weight gain and acne, two things Hollywood often treats as career killers for women. While male actors could age into character roles, Michelle was judged by her looks, and the health battle chipped away at her confidence and her opportunities. Michael Michelle played Selena in New Jack City, 1991, at 25 years old. Now, she is 59 years old with an estimated net worth of $5 million earned from acting, brand partnerships, and television work. Proof that despite obstacles, she carved out resilience in an unforgiving industry. Bill Nunn as Doo-Doo Man. Bill Nunn's role as Doo-Doo Man in New Jack City wasn't flashy, but it stuck with you. With his halting speech and oddball presence, he stood out in a film crowded with dealers, killers, and corrupt cops. It was a small role, yet Nunn had a rare gift. He could make even a few lines unforgettable, leaving audiences whispering, "Who was that guy?" That gift had already been proven 2 years earlier. As Radio Raheem in Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, 1989, Nunn created an icon. Raheem's towering frame, blasting boombox, and tragic death at the hands of police became a symbol of racial tension that still resonates today. But while the role brought him fame, it also chained him to a stereotype. Hollywood kept offering him the same kinds of characters, the big, intimidating black man, silent or one-dimensional. He appeared in Sister Act, 1992, and Regarding Henry, 1991, but these projects gave him little room to show his full range. He wanted complex, layered roles. What he got instead were fragments. Behind the screen, the struggle cut even deeper. Nunn wrestled with chronic depression for much of his life, though he rarely spoke publicly about it. Friends recalled that he poured his energy into Pittsburgh's community, supporting youth and theater programs. Acting gave him visibility, but it didn't bring him peace. Each time he was typecast, it reminded him of the industry's blind spots. His intelligence, humor, and vulnerability rarely made it onto the screen. In his final years, he faced his hardest battle yet. Diagnosed with blood cancer in 2015, he chose silence rather than public sympathy. He kept working quietly, mentoring young artists, spending time with family, and continuing his community outreach. Even as his health faded, he carried himself with dignity, never allowing the world to see how much pain he endured. When he passed in 2016, it shocked many who never knew he had been sick at all. Bill Nunn played Doo-Doo Man in New Jack City, 1991, at 38 years old. He died in 2016 at the age of 62, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $1.5 million, earned from film royalties, his historic Pittsburgh home, and unpublished stage scripts that revealed the creative voice Hollywood never fully allowed him to share. Jake LaMotta as gangster. There's a moment in New Jack City when the camera lingers on a gangster's hard, unflinching stare. That wasn't a trained actor, it was Jake LaMotta, the real-life Bronx Bull. He stepped into the film not to reinvent himself, but to lend it raw grit. His presence was more than casting. It was a reminder of a fighter whose scars had become his story. LaMotta's brush with Hollywood started much earlier. His memoir inspired Raging Bull, 1980, where Robert De Niro won an Oscar playing him. That movie immortalized his legacy, but also exposed his darkest truths: violence, infidelity, and mafia ties. After the acclaim, LaMotta tried acting, but his reputation left him typecast, struggling to land substantial roles. Bit parts became his reality. He appeared here and there, stand-up clubs, small films, and, yes, New Jack City. Instead of launching a new career, these roles reminded him of what he had lost: the spotlight, the money, the respect. For every chance he got, the shadow of Raging Bull loomed too large, leaving him trapped in his own legend. And the bitterness followed. LaMotta's scandals, arrests, accusations, and broken marriages bled into his career. Audiences saw the violence of his life more clearly than his talent as a performer. By the time New Jack City came along, he was already fading, clinging to cameos that paid the bills but never brought redemption. Jake LaMotta appeared as a gangster in New Jack City, 1991, at 69 years old. He died in 2017 at the age of 95, with an estimated net worth of $1 million. Chris Rock as Pookie. Pookie was comic relief and tragedy rolled into one. Chris Rock made him unforgettable in New Jack City, a jittery crack addict who made audiences laugh one moment and break their hearts the next. For Rock, it was the role that announced him as more than a stand-up comedian. It proved he had depth, timing, and vulnerability that few saw coming. But Rock's career was never smooth. Coming from Brooklyn, he carried the scars of bullying and racism, traumas he later admitted fed his paranoia and self-doubt. His early years on Saturday Night Live were frustrating. He often felt sidelined and underused, watching his peers break through while he was stuck in the background. It was New Jack City and later Bring the Payne, his 1996 HBO special, that finally gave him the respect he long chased. Success, however, didn't erase the pressure. His 18-year marriage collapsed in 2016 after he confessed to multiple affairs, leaving him publicly humiliated. In comedy, he thrived with specials like Bigger and Blacker, but in Hollywood, films like Head of State and Down to Earth underperformed, reinforcing the idea that he couldn't carry blockbusters. For every high, there was a low waiting to strike. The lowest came in 2022. When Will Smith slapped him on live television at the Oscars, Rock became the center of a global spectacle. He later admitted it left him with panic attacks and a fear of public appearances. Therapy, 7 hours a week, helped him face the trauma, but the image of him standing stunned on that stage became part of his legacy. Chris Rock played Pookie in New Jack City, 1991, at 26 years old. Today, he is 60 years old, with an estimated net worth of $60 million, sustained by real estate investments, stand-up tours, and his place as one of the most influential comedians of his generation. Judd Nelson as Nick Peretti. Nick Peretti wasn't your clean-cut detective. He was brash, sarcastic, and unpredictable. In New Jack City, Judd Nelson gave the character a sharp edge, playing the kind of cop who would bend rules, talk back, and get under your skin. His chemistry with Ice-T's Scotty Appleton added grit and humor to a film already buzzing with tension. For Nelson, it was a chance to step outside his 1980s teen idol image and prove he could handle darker, more mature roles. But Hollywood is not forgiving, especially to actors who refuse to play the game. Nelson's career after his Brat Pack glory in The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire spiraled into turmoil. Studios expected him to be the rebel heartthrob forever, and when he tried to evolve, they pushed back. Films like Blue City flopped, critics turned cold, and producers started whispering that he was difficult. Instead of riding his fame into prestige, Nelson became a cautionary tale of how fast the industry discards its icons. The 1990s exposed every crack. On set, Nelson was accused of clashing with directors, showing up unprepared, and spiraling into erratic behavior. His demons, addiction, exhaustion, and reckless decisions, began to overshadow his talent. Twice, he was hospitalized for mental burnout. The press, once eager to celebrate him, now painted him as a problem actor. Still, there were moments of resilience. His role in New Jack City proved he could handle crime dramas. Later appearances in TV series like Suddenly Susan gave him a steady paycheck and a chance to show his comedic side. He worked consistently but far from the spotlight, living in semi-isolation in Los Angeles, nursing both his wounds and his reputation as the rebel who burned too hot, too fast. Judd Nelson played Detective Nick Peretti in New Jack City, 1991, at 31 years old. Now, he is 66 years old, with an estimated net worth of $4 million, sustained mostly by royalties from his 1980s classics and family investments rather than Hollywood's embrace. Mario Van Peebles as Detective Stone. New Jack City didn't just give us Nino Brown's empire, it gave us Detective Stone, the cool-headed cop who refused to be outsmarted. Mario Van Peebles played him with steady authority, but the real gamble was off-screen. He directed the entire movie. Carrying both roles, he turned a gritty crime story into a cultural landmark, proving that a young black filmmaker could helm a Hollywood crime epic. But success came with heavy costs. Hollywood didn't fully embrace him, despite the film's box office win. When he directed Posse, 1993, a groundbreaking black western, critics dismissed it, and studios branded him too political. What could have been a career-defining triumph became a financial disappointment, leaving Van Peebles struggling to find his next big opportunity. The same fate hit Panther, 1995. Ambitious and politically charged, it faced harsh backlash, with producers and reviewers calling it controversial and unmarketable. Instead of opening doors, it shut them, keeping Van Peebles locked in a cycle of battles for funding and respect. His artistry was clear, but Hollywood wasn't ready to give him the space to thrive. Carrying his father's legacy only made it harder. As the son of Melvin Van Peebles, Mario was expected to live up to a revolutionary standard, while constantly being accused of riding on family influence. That tension crushed him at times, feeding depression and pushing him to step back from the industry, retreating to Costa Rica for peace. Mario Van Peebles starred as Detective Stone and directed New Jack City, 1991, at 34 years old. Now, he is 68 years old, with an estimated net worth of $12 million. Nick Ashford as Reverend Oates. Nick Ashford didn't arrive in New Jack City as a gangster or a cop. He showed up in the pulpit. As Reverend Oates, his presence was a break in the violence, a preacher offering moral clarity in a city tearing itself apart. It wasn't a long role, but it struck a nerve. The power of one voice, soft yet firm, against a tidal wave of chaos. Behind the pulpit, Ashford was already a legend in music. Alongside Valerie Simpson, he co-wrote anthems like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and I'm Every Woman. But Hollywood and the music industry had a way of pushing even the brightest talents into the background. Labels put singers in front, leaving Ashford and Simpson fighting for recognition and royalties that were rightfully theirs. Then came betrayal. In the early 70s, financial scams left him nearly homeless. While his songs played on radios worldwide, Ashford himself was living in a church basement, struggling to rebuild. It was the cruelest irony. The man behind some of Motown's most hopeful love songs was living through despair. The 1980s nearly broke him again. Cocaine addiction threatened his marriage, and constant touring fractured his family bonds. When throat cancer arrived in his later years, it robbed him of the one thing the world knew him for, his soaring voice. His resilience was remarkable, but the pain was never far away. Nick Ashford appeared as Reverend Oates in New Jack City, 1991, at 49 years old. He died in 2011 at the age of 69 with an estimated net worth of $15 million, drawn from songwriting royalties and his iconic Sugar Bar in New York. Russell Wong as Park. As Park in New Jack City, Russell Wong didn't need many lines to make an impact. His quiet stare, precise movements, and intimidating presence made him the kind of enforcer you didn't want to cross. For many viewers, it was refreshing to see an Asian American actor in a mainstream crime saga, not in a kung fu costume, but in a gritty street-level role. But Wong's career was an uphill fight. Hollywood in the 1990s wasn't kind to actors who looked like him. Casting directors pushed him into stereotypes: gangsters with accents, martial arts fighters, silent villains. He resisted, often turning down roles that insulted his identity. That courage cost him work, leaving him caught between survival and dignity. His biggest breakthrough came with Vanishing Son, 1994, where he became one of the first Asian American leads in a prime-time series. For a brief moment, it seemed like change was possible. Critics praised him, audiences responded, and Wong had finally escaped the box. But when the network canceled the show after only a handful of episodes, the momentum vanished. What could have been a revolution became a reminder of Hollywood's short attention span. After that collapse, Wong never regained the same spotlight. While others landed franchises, he drifted between small roles and independent projects. The lack of representation in Hollywood meant his talent rarely got the stage it deserved. His marriage eventually fell apart, and he retreated into a quieter life, teaching martial arts, focusing on photography, and living between Los Angeles and Asia. Russell Wong played Park in New Jack City, 1991, at 28 years old. Now he is 62 years old, with an estimated net worth between $100,000 and $1 million, living modestly and remembered as one of the pioneers who challenged Hollywood's stereotypes, even when it cost him dearly. Vanessa A. Williams as Keisha. In New Jack City, Keisha was the cold-blooded lieutenant of Nino Brown, the woman who carried a gun as easily as she carried herself. Vanessa A. Williams gave her a fierce presence, making Keisha one of the few female enforcers in a world ruled by men. For Williams, it was a breakout chance to show Hollywood that she could bring steel and intensity to the screen. Yet her career quickly collided with one of the strangest curses in show business: a name. She was constantly confused with another actress, Vanessa L. Williams, the former Miss America. Casting directors mixed them up, credits were botched, and opportunities slipped away. What should have been a stepping stone role in New Jack City turned into a frustrating battle just to be recognized as herself. The legal wrangling with SAG over her name dragged on for years, and by the time it was settled, the momentum was gone. Her brightest triumph came with Soul Food in 1997. As Maxine, she finally got the acclaim she deserved. Strong reviews, a loyal fan base, and a role that showed her depth beyond action thriller toughness. But instead of springboarding her into steady work, the industry once again seemed to look past her. After Soul Food, her phone went silent. The offers didn't come, and she slipped into a painful obscurity. Behind that silence was suffering. Williams was dealing with undiagnosed PTSD and depression while raising 2 sons alone. She carried the trauma of a violent childhood and a failed marriage scarred by abuse. Another relationship drained her financially. Her career, once filled with promise, became a memory she could only revisit through royalties and fan conventions. The Hollywood system had failed her, and the personal toll was written on her life. Vanessa A. Williams played Keisha in New Jack City, 1991, at 28 years old. Now she is 62 years old, with an estimated net worth of about $2 million, built from film royalties, her Atlanta home, and public speaking, far from the career she once seemed destined to have. John Aprea as Don Armateo. Not all villains in New Jack City wore street clothes. Don Armateo, played by John Aprea, brought the old-world mafia into the mix, a calculating mob boss who treated the crack trade like another family business. His scenes connected 2 criminal worlds, the traditional mob and the new empire of Nino Brown. Aprea's real career, though, was filled with near misses. He earned early respect in The Godfather, Part 2, portraying young Tessio. It should have launched him into steady stardom, but instead, he found himself boxed into supporting roles. By the time New Jack City came around, he was still chasing the breakthrough that always seemed just out of reach. The sting of rejection was sharpest in the 1990s. Aprea turned down a role on The Sopranos, a decision he later called the dumbest of my life. Watching the show explode into cultural history while he drifted in and out of smaller gigs left him with regret he never shook off. And behind the camera, his personal storms made things worse. 3 divorces, accusations of manipulation, and estrangement from his daughter created shadows he carried even on set. Films like The Idolmaker and Deconstructing Harry reminded audiences of his talent, but Hollywood never gave him more than fragments of the spotlight. John Aprea appeared as Don Armateo in New Jack City, 1991, at 50 years old. He died in 2024 at the age of 83, with an estimated net worth of $3 million built from royalties, modest investments, and his collection of vintage cars. Alan Payne as G Money. G Money wasn't just Nino Brown's partner. He was the brother-in-arms who believed in the empire until betrayal shattered everything. Alan Payne gave the role charisma and depth, making G Money both likable and tragic. It was his biggest early role, one that should have launched him into stardom. But Payne never fully embraced Hollywood. Unlike many of his co-stars, he avoided the spotlight and rejected the machine that demanded constant publicity. That choice gave him freedom, but also cost him momentum. Rumors swirled that he was difficult on set, rewriting dialogue, clashing with directors, and sometimes walking off shoots. Whether true or exaggerated, the whispers were enough to stall his career. He had moments of brilliance. Jason's Lyric, 1994, showcased his dramatic talent and earned him critical praise. Later, House of Payne gave him a steady home on television, proving he could carry a series. Yet even at his peak, Payne kept himself distant. He skipped premieres, rarely gave interviews, and quietly retreated when projects ended. In an industry built on visibility, he became invisible by choice. Behind the silence was Payne. Payne came from Harlem housing projects, where poverty and crime were constant shadows. As an adult, he carried that discipline into his faith, but also into relationships that fractured under strain. A long-term partnership collapsed amid accusations of emotional abuse. Instead of chasing another comeback, he disappeared into a private life between Atlanta and New York, rarely seen at industry events. Alan Payne played Gerald G. Money Wells in New Jack City, 1991, at 23 years old. Today, he is 57 years old, with an estimated net worth of $5 million, built from modest real estate, independent theater projects, and royalties, a career defined not by Hollywood's embrace, but by his own refusal to play by its rules. More than 3 decades later, the cast of New Jack City reminds us that fame cannot stop the passing of time, or the struggles that come with it. Their journeys are filled with triumph, heartbreak, and lessons that still echo today. Which of these stories moved you the most? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories.